Thanks, Fiona. That's a great introduction. Saved me doing it, so I appreciate that. Can I also acknowledge the First Nations people on whose land we meet, elders past, present, and judging by some of the presentations today, certainly emerging. We're a great group here in Queensland. Congratulations, Minister, on sticking around all day and for your announcement earlier. I notice your Assistant Minister's not here. What's he, having an early drink or something? Yeah, right. Oh, here he is. He comes back. Welcome back, Michael Thomas Patrick Healy. So I thought I'd just set up quickly what is regenerative tourism. Having been in the industry for many years, there's a lot of names get thrown around, and you've seen some of these names. There was the term over-tourism, and I think things like ecotourism, and I defer to Tara, who's got a master's degree in ecotourism, but it was really invented and thought about as a reaction to the destruction that sometimes I think environmentally people thought tourism was doing. My view of the tourism sector is we are the most passionate environmental advocates because we can't lose what we sell, so we become advocates. From ecotourism came sustainable tourism, and the idea that it's not just about making money, it should be about protecting the environment, it should be acknowledging the First Nations people, and it should be having a social impact as well. And more recently, it's this regenerative tourism idea, which I think is a great idea, which is tourism for good, the ability to leave our destinations better than when we found them. You know, as a father of 3 kids in their teens and 20s, I want them to be able to see the beauty and wonder that I've been able to see in my lifetime. And I think that's something that we all should be aspiring to. This is the Strand in Townsville, I think. No, sorry, it's the Trevi Fountain in Italy, and we've all been there, haven't we? And I think during COVID, we all thought that when tourism came back, this wouldn't happen. Now, having lived and worked in Saudi and been able to travel in Europe while Australia was locked down, it's happening already. You know, Istanbul and in Turkey is like jam-packed. So I think we're going back to old habits, unfortunately, and I think that's where Queensland and Australia can stand out. If we don't go back to these old habits, that we actually do better with what we have to offer. There's also a lot of activists out there now who are actually challenging visitors in guilting them out of travel. And, you know, having run Tourism Australia and we have a big audience in the UK, Europe, it's going to be harder for those guys to make the big journey if they can't justify that. So we as an industry need to make sure we are doing that for them, giving them the guilt-free holiday, justifying the fact that they're travelling a long way, using a lot of air miles, food miles, etc. to get here. So this is what's going on at the moment. It's not just, it's actually activists actually campaign against it. I think the aviation industry cops a lot of flack. It's almost like the poster child for, you know, carbon emissions when it's only about 2% of the world's carbon emissions. That said, it's probably a symbol of the way tourism is being regarded, and we need to set ourselves up to protect against that. The other thing is I think there's financial opportunity in regenerative tourism. Pre-COVID, the global market was about 1.5 trillion US. The number one reason people went, and think about Queensland in the context of these, was sun and sea, coastal and aquatic. We have the best beaches, and I think we need to think about reinventing the beach holiday. Look at the culture and heritage, and I love the focus in the plan that the Minister launched around First Nations people and telling and celebrating that story. I love the Welcome to Country this morning, where part of regeneration, I think, is regenerating the languages, the original languages, which I thought was just terrific. And then you look at adventure tourism, the fastest growing category off the lower base, and Queensland is perfectly set for it. So the fastest growing and biggest categories are things that Queensland's well set up for. So in terms of regeneration, we have a huge financial opportunity aiming at what the Minister announced and Liz Savage announced today, the $44 billion by 2032. And we saw Rose talk about this. The emerging trends are such that people are looking for much more meaningful experiences, volunteerism being part of the change. They're also looking for sustainable travel with local custodians. Think about yourself. The stories you tell are when you meet locals, they immerse you in what they know and love, and you then retell that story. It's always a better trip when a local takes you on it. And then ultimately we want to make a positive contribution. In Saudi Arabia, probably the biggest generator of carbon emissions in the world with Aramco, a profitable oil-producing company, the destination I was working on, NEOM, is very much about getting to net zero and becoming regenerative. In fact, we're working on issuing customers who come a regenerative receipt, being able to tell them what impact they had how it was offset and in fact what positive contribution they made to the local communities, Bedouins and others in local employment. And this is where I think it all needs to go. So with that set up, I'll go straight to the panel, and they've already been introduced, but I might just get them each to reintroduce themselves and just give you 30 seconds about what drew them to tourism and what they believe is regenerative tourism. Ali, I'll begin with you.
Hi, my name is Ali Khan. I was born in Bedouin family in Thar Desert in India, right on Pakistan border. I've been in Australia for the last 8 years, and I own and operate Narrows Escape, and we've been lucky enough to be living in hinterland Sunshine Coast, which is great to talk on this.
Very good. And Ali is a desert man from India, a Bedouin himself, and he's lived all around the world. He's lived in Scandinavia, he's lived here in Australia, and he's made the hinterland of the Sunshine Coast his home. So a passionate Queenslander now, Ali.
Absolutely, and I think Queensland is one of the best destination to be, and it's a great tourist estate, and I love it. What we have a nature and culture. What tells the greatest story, and I think the tourism is all about telling the story, and which I love being here, and I love it at Narrows. And what we offer at Narrows, it's of course we are boutique, it's luxury accommodation, but at the same time we tell the story about nature and culture to our guests, how to remember Narrows.
Very good.
And how to tell that story to their friends, families, and to make sure that they can come and visit us.
It's probably a good segue. I'll go to Simon next. And Simon, you've got a great story to tell on a heritage-listed boat, and also telling the original stories of the area that you serve.
Yeah, thank you. So Simon Thornalley, founder of Saltwater Eco Tours. So we're a marine tourism business based in Mooloolaba on the Sunshine Coast, on Cubby Cubby or Gubby Gubby country. So I come from more of a construction background. Spent most of my life at sea, growing up on the water. So I wanted to start a business that combined, I guess, all of my experience and things that I'm passionate about, and coming from a construction background, feeling like I've always been a little bit of the odd one out, wanting to be a bit greener than everyone else. I knew that tourism was a way forward for the future as far as sustainability. So yeah, my background, as I said, grew up at sea on an ex-mission boat, which has embedded the culture that I've grown up with from my mum and dad. I saw an opportunity to start something that was unique to the area, and a way to connect our locals and our community to the Aboriginal culture as well as the maritime history. So yeah, that's it in brief, I think.
Very good. And Tara, you're our most educated person in this regard, having got a master's degree in ecotourism, but the area that you represent, this is really important, isn't it? That Port Douglas-Daintree, this is really the story you're telling, what you're selling.
Yeah, that's exactly right. So I'm the CEO for Tourism Port Douglas-Daintree. We're the local tourism organisation for the Douglas Shire. And our shire is 80% of the landmass is protected under World Heritage listing, and at the same time 80% of our economy is dependent on tourism. So it's a natural fit for us that ecotourism, sustainability should be at the absolute core of what we do. And it's been an interesting journey because our industry has led the way. There are so many in this room who have been eco-certified for 20 plus years. I think it's always the industry who innovates and leads the charge. We had that coupled with a community that was very, very passionate about the environment, but it took some time for government to catch up. And I think talking to a lot of other destinations, that's often been the missing link, which is why today's announcements are so welcome, that government is on board with sustainability now. And so in 2018, we were approached to be the pilot for Ecotourism Australia's Eco Destination program. Our local government was really excited, and so that set the path for us going forward. And it was a really long journey. It takes a lot to go through the process, but the beauty of it is it actually brings everyone together, and all of a sudden you can see what everyone's doing in isolation and what an impact that's making overall for the visitor experience.
And Chriss, you're our big end of town. Chriss is obviously from SeaLink, which I used to chair, now known as Kelsian, listed company worth almost $2 billion, and it's probably Australia's biggest multimodal fleet of tourism and transport. So you're at that end. There's a lot of shareholder, I guess, interest in the approach to regeneration, but what's your view on that?
So last I spoke at DestinationQ, yes, there's been quite a few changes. So we've gone from SeaLink Travel Group to the Kelsian Group, which is an anagram. That's what happens when you let the marketers out with their crayons. We can basically split ourselves into two parts. We've got our marine and tourism division, and then we have our transport, bus and light rail division. We're about 9,000 staff now. I'm losing track of how many buses we're operating. It's north of 4,000, and about 1,000 or 1,100 of those are electric buses. We also have been operating hydrogen buses. But I sit on the 120 boat fleet side of the business, and it's certainly a daunting challenge, but we've got a lot of enthusiasm to get ourselves to decarbonisation of our fleet.
And I'll stick with you, Chris. I mean, there is a lot of shareholder expectation and global expectation around the changeover of fleet, etc. Let's stick with boats, and I'll go to you next, Simon. What is the future? How do we produce regenerative boats? Can we get to hydrogen? Can we use electricity? How far away are we?
So I've just come back from Seattle. They've just held the world's Interferry Conference. It's all the big hitters in the ferry industry and the big manufacturers, Wärtsilä and MTU, Kronsberg, there's a whole range of them. And the take-home message from that was it's much easier to say than do. And currently there's a very significant gap between commercial reality and producing a zero emissions boat. What I took away though was there is no lack of enthusiasm or drive to get there. There is probably going to be quite a number of paths to get there. There'll be a bit of a step change. You know, people are starting to look at dual fuel engines, hydrogen and diesel engines to get themselves there. The regulatory path is very difficult and very challenging. And at times you just need to boil the whole thing back to a simple maths equation. So our fleet uses 17 million litres of fuel a year. It's a big number. Diesel is 4 times more energy dense than hydrogen, so we're at about 68 million litres of hydrogen. That's not something you click your fingers and produce in a hurry. So it is going to be a very challenging path. There will be emerging technologies that speed up and slow down. We were talking to the guys at Corvus, who are the leading battery technology company. They've had 14 technological breakthroughs in the last 10 years. It's moving really quickly. We can see it on the horizon. We're very excited about it, but it's not quite there yet. And if that boils it back to if you don't have a government, a board, an owner or a client that's willing to bridge the gap at the moment, it makes the jump very hard.
Simon, what about you? Is it easier with perhaps less of a fleet and a smaller vessel? Can you get there? Have you looked at it?
Yeah, I've definitely looked into it. It's definitely something we're very interested in. It probably is a lot easier being a single vessel, but still, as a small family-operated business, financially, it's a long way off. It's something that we have been researching to try and move into that space, but I think for now, without having the standards and things in place, the approvals to be able to go down the path of hydrogen, it's just a matter of keep pushing, researching and finding all that information available, and for now taking all the small steps to further offset emissions and, you know, contributing to all of those smaller things to minimise the negative impacts that we're potentially contributing to.
Give me some examples of what those small steps are for you.
So I guess for us personally, it's offsetting our carbon emissions, contributing to other projects such as tree planting, the planting of seaweeds down in Tasmania, and minimising waste, recycling, you know, all of the standard things as a eco-certified business. All of those little steps create big waves.
And Ali, you told me this as well, that from little things, big things grow, and it's those small steps that you can take. Give me some examples of what you're doing at your business.
Correct. So small, everything's where we start, it's always small steps. And I do believe that coming from very small business, it's very, very important. And it has a very big impact on your small business. I give you a simple example, like when we bought Narrows Escape, it was doing great, fantastic. And I came and run the same way what previous owner used to run it. But what changes I can do, because Narrows, it's in beautiful rainforest. It's one of the luxurious area in Queensland where we can think and talk about. what I can do changes there, which I can contribute a little bit into the plant, but through my business. So the first things what we did, it's going 100% chemical free. So as being a small operator, this is not a big change, but it impact a very big. Second things what we do, the electricity invoices were so high, so put a solar panel on it, and believe me or not, it was great government support there, and that reduced 60% my electricity invoice. I built 2 new cottages and calculating all the measures where I can actually use less and less electricity, but I can heat my pools with the solars, how that gonna work. And that impact a lot on especially my pocket. And having a very small, but in a very, very eco way, like having your own growing, you grow your own vegetables, offer a small but organic foods, what you have a great produce in Sunshine Coast region. It's small, but it's a very big impact. And that's what people guests who come and stay with us, they remember those small changes. And they go back home and talk about that. And that's how we sustain. And telling small changes to your guests is also very, very important. You need to let them know that what you are doing, what they are actually coming experiencing at your place. That is very, very important. Again, I would say that storytelling, the part of that, it's very important for them to remember, and they're going to have a great experience with that. So small changes are very, very important.
I think the last panel on accessible tourism, that they made some great points about just doing some small things, you can actually tackle it. And so Tara, in the Daintree and Port Douglas, you must have some great examples of businesses that have done exactly that and are starting to get commercial returns from it, so they're actually seeing benefit. Would that be the case?
Yeah, absolutely. And in fact, it's about telling that story. We ran some consultation a few years ago, and through that we were talking to one of our major resorts, and they mentioned that with their big refurbishment, they'd had to change their sensors in the rooms for when the aircon kicked in and out. And through that, they'd save 40% in their energy use. So financially, an incredible savings. But that story then wasn't being told. And to me, that 5-star resort with major capacity, when people have concerns about what impact that has, to be able to tell that story makes a big difference. And so we've made a big effort to try and encourage a lot of our operators outside of tourism to get involved with programs like EcoBiz through CCIQ, because there's so many mechanisms to help you reduce your waste, reduce power, water usage, and I know small businesses can be so overwhelmed, but there's a lot of help out there.
Do you have any good individual examples anecdotally of people that have seen an uptick in business because they've made the effort?
Yes, I can finally say that.
Yeah.
I think for many, many years, those of us who are green at heart were trying to convince so many others that this was the way forward, but the evidence simply wasn't there. Whereas now you are seeing people very much willing to pay a premium for a product that they understand has their eco-credentials in place and are looking more at regenerative benefits. It's not just neutral, it's not tokenism, that they're actually wanting to have visitors knowing that they've made a positive impact by being in the region.
It's good to hear, because I agree. I think the tokenism was, none of us ticked the little offset my flight button for $3.89 really, and if we did, it was really to feel better about ourselves or something. But I think more and more, and there's generations of people who are looking for entities that do this and do this well. What about you, Simon? Do you think there's commercial benefit in it? Do you think customers are now looking for this commitment?
Definitely. I think a lot of the topics that have been discussed today highlight that, and customer experience, especially in tourism, people are wanting to feel good about where they're going, what they're contributing to, if they're buying a ticket to an experience. The commercial value is them going home talking about that significant reason as to why they chose that business, that word of mouth. And for us, as a First Nations business, we have an obligation to care for country. So this whole topic goes hand in hand. And for our customers, it's about connecting our customers with our culture and connecting them with that experience and educating them how we're being sustainable, how they're contributing to that, and what they can take home from that as well.
Very good. Ali, you were telling me that the green tick you've got on booking.com was actually leading to better business. I had a look online. It's not cheap to stay at Narrows, which is good, but people are paying the premium because you have this commitment. Is that fair to say?
Correct, yeah. And luckily, people are paying. Yeah, that's very true.
You can book it, by the way. You can book him on Luxury Escapes, which is a great business site, which I also chair, by the way.
I had a great experience with them, yeah. We've been one of the luckiest operator in Queensland, and we've been running a great show in post-COVID since we were allowed to reopen. Yeah, green tick is a very, very good thing, and I do encourage everyone to go, and I'm pretty much sure that everybody in this room practice the sustainability, this and that. If not, then go back and do it. And when you do all those practices, you need to actually speak out that what you are doing. You need to get the certification for that, so that let consumer know that actually you are practicing this practice at your business. That is very important. That's how you're gonna generate, financially support your business. That's very, very important things. Yes, if you go on TripAdvisor and see the Narrows Escape, it's going to tell you the global gold leader. If you're going to go on booking.com, and you're going to see the sustainable accommodation provider. Yes, it's a very, very important. I give you a very small example. You said Luxury Escape. Sunshine Coast, great walk, been there for last, I don't know, God knows how many years there. And it's a great walk, 52 kilometer, 48 kilometer, whatever. It's been there for a long time. It's a great walk. It's probably one of the best walk I have done. And when I came in, coming from Bedouin family, it's always that we want to show our land to the people who come and visit us. So it was always in our head that we need to do something different, what we can do, which actually people gonna enjoy the luxury of being at Narrows, but at the same time, they're gonna experience the Sunshine Coast hinterland in a very positive and a better way. What we can do, we came across the Sunshine Coast Great Walk. I contacted council, and council said, yes, there is a walk. And I said, how about if I would like to run that as a part of my business? They said, that's totally fine if you want to do it, but you need to have all the certification and this and that. I contacted a local company who does this guiding and all those tour kind of things. And I did that walk with them. I walked with a gentleman from Kabi Kabi country, Kerry, him and me, we did. And I was really impressed the amount of great plantation we have, the amount of support what you get, the medication, the fruits, the food, what you get throughout that walk. You can't buy that in the market. That's you need to go into the nature and enjoy that, give back to the nature, and enjoy that. We launched that walk, and it gone crazy. And to be honest with you, that's 1/3 of my revenue today, and which nobody was taking advantage of that walk being there. And we love it, and we just got contracted with Nat Geo for next year for 320 people for 1 year next. And we do get direct bookings. As you said, Luxury Escape, we did first campaign with them, and that gone very successful, and I am looking forward to working with them again.
So just to be clear, you've embraced the locals, you're using Kabi Kabi guides, rangers, you're in cahoots with national parks. So it's a good example, I think, Ali, of how you've embraced all the necessary people to actually generate something that's now world class.
Correct. As you have been in Saudi Arabia, and you know the Bedouin culture, so we all about working within community, working with people around you. It's not only your business or about yourself, it's working within. So on that walk, we work with the 13 different businesses, and letting my guests know that what actually Kabi Kabi and Jinabara country about, and Narrows and that area, Baroon Pocket Dam, it sits on a very historical land. There used to be around 100 years or 114, if I'm maybe wrong, but there used to be a Banya festival gathering where all the indigenous troops used to travel all around Queensland and come and celebrate there, and there used to be a 1 month. So it's a very, very positive country, and why not I should show that to the guests who are coming at Narrows. So yes, we are working with the Jinabara and Kabi Kabi people who come and welcome. I've been working with them for the last 1.5 to 2 years. I work with 12 other businesses, like tour operators, restaurants, or local producers, organic food producers, and even spicers, I work with them to experience my old guests who come and stay at Narrows, experience what best we have in Sunshine Coast.
Yes. And Chris, you've got a different, or you've got a commercial imperative. Do you think that the aim for regeneration will be good for business? As you say, there's a cost that'll come with it. You've probably got some other pressures around government and shareholders, but does your boss Clint and your chairman Jeff, do they see some commercial imperative in it?
It goes beyond a commercial imperative. The company's got a very strong view that we need to go down this path, and we're not shrinking from the size of the challenge. The difference or the difficulties come about. I'm sure we've all ridden a push bike down the road and stopped pedalling and coasted, and I'm sure plenty of the people in the room have gotten a kayak and paddled away, or a canoe and paddled away, and when you stop paddling, you stop really quick. That's just friction. A 30-metre catamaran has an underwater area of about 250 square metres in contact with the water, which drives up your energy usage to deliver passengers. So the way we're looking at it is, and we're getting fantastic support and encouragement from the Queensland Government to look at how do we use the emerging technologies like hydrogen to power our boats, which is very, very exciting. So what we're doing is tipping some of the new technology on its head and trying to work out, can we come up with solutions that can be used not just by us, but more broadly industry. Electrification will play a very large role in the future of our fleets, but if you can imagine in Cairns, the tourism fleet comes back from the reef and they all drive into their berths and they all plug their power into to power up their boats overnight and charge. At that point, it's all very romantic in Cairns. Every restaurant will be candlelit because there's not enough power to supply it. So, we're looking at, well, it's difficult to put hydrogen on a boat. Can we come up with a hybrid solution where we produce our power onshore with a hydrogen cell so it's green, we store that in battery banks, and then we push that over to the boat in its berth and charge overnight from the battery bank. So it's taking the innovation and innovating with it to find the solution, and then finding the right ferry application. And one of the ones that sticks largely in my mind is the Cross River ferries in Brisbane. It's short run, there's easy access to power. That to me is low-hanging fruit. So it's just grab what you can, use it how you can, and we've got to get there, and our board is very determined to get us there.
Yeah, I think technology is going to really, accelerate, isn't it, in the next decade? But you're right, you've got to begin somewhere. Look, a question to you all. In terms of the idea of regenerative tourism, leaving our place, Queensland, better, where do we sit, do you think, in global terms? Tara, I'll start with you. Is Queensland up there yet? Do we have a lot of work to do? Do you have other examples? What's your view?
We have a lot of work to do, unfortunately. We have such a bounty of natural assets that I think we have rested on our laurels. Australia overall is well behind. I lived in Switzerland 25 years ago, and I lived in a village that only had electric vehicles. There I think you had 5 different categories for your recycling 25 years ago. So we've got a long way to go, and it's even harder in regional areas because we don't have the same access to the infrastructure. In LA last month, the number of EV charging stations, they're everywhere, the cars are everywhere. I mean, they're so few and far between in regional areas right now, and we've got quite a long way to go. That's overall for regenerative tourism. I think the demand is there, and there's some really great opportunities. I believe we're close. I know for my region, we're really trying to connect different charities who are big on their tree planting and Daintree buyback and growing the rainforest, turning that into a commercially viable option where tour groups can be part of that. The appetite's there, we just haven't yet made that connection. So I think we're close, and we will get there very quickly because we've certainly become much better at adapting. However, we still have quite a long way to go to meet the expectation of visitors, particularly from the European markets. Yeah,
look, I think you're right there. Simon, do you have a view on that? How does Queensland stack up? I think Tara's very right. We have the natural attribute, we have the people, we have the excitement about it, but we've probably got some work to do. Would you agree, Simon?
Yeah, I agree 100%. The opportunity is definitely there, and the opportunity is huge. And going back to Cameron Costello this morning, we've got two of the oldest living cultures right here in Queensland. We've got 3 biospheres now here in Queensland. the opportunity is massive. We've got all of these assets, all of these great businesses, so much culture and so much to show the world. I think we really need to just put our foot down, move forward down this path of regenerative tourism. If everyone can contribute in those little things moving forward, I think we can get there.
Simon mentions that we've got 3 biosphere reserves here. Today, the 3rd of November, is the first ever International Day for Biosphere Reserves, and Queensland has 3, Great Sandy, Noosa and the Sunshine Coast, which together form the only UNESCO Biosphere Corridor in the world. I know you all knew that, but I just thought I'd just let you know. Well done. What do you think? Chriss, you've just been to one of the biggest ferry conferences globally. How are we stacking up comparatively here in Queensland?
We're probably as enthusiastic as the rest of the countries around the place. Europe's definitely the leaders, but it was interesting to hear some of the guys are being challenged to move to electrification and now having struggles with the cost of energy in electrifying their ferries. New Zealand, our sort of cousins across the ditch, are innovating, and we're starting to take on board some of that technology. I think we will emerge as a leader in the adoption of it, but certainly some of the other countries are going pretty hard at it. I was sitting there talking to the boys from Kitsap Ferries. They've been given $15 million US just to build one ferry. I'm talking to the Washington State ferry guys, another government-run ferry organisation. They've been given many, many millions of dollars. So there is different levels of investment, and everybody's trying to work out which horse to back. Hydrogen is but one of those. We'll adopt it as quickly as we can. But one of the things that we're very mindful of is we do carry a couple of different passenger types. We carry tourism, but we also carry everyday commuters. So we need to be quite mindful and respectful that the impacts we have in adopting those technologies don't drive up the cost of everyday commutes. And we also need to make sure that we're mindful of the cost on our clients as a destination as we push down this path. So we're keen. There's just a couple of little challenges to overcome.
Subsequent question, are there many boat builders, ferry builders in Australia, and are they trying to adapt and adopt these new technologies?
Yeah, we're actually really fortunate. We've got some fantastic shipbuilders here in Australia, and one of the most well-known is the big boys down in Tassie, Incat. Bob Clifford made an announcement at Seattle about their next large one, trying to make that a hybrid vessel. Tommy Erickson from Ozships here in Brisbane is working with us on our hydrogen project. Ozships in Sydney is a world leader, and they were involved in Sea Change, which was the first hydrogen ferry built in the States. So we're really fortunate. We've got some amazing naval architects that are shoulder to the wheel with us. So yeah, it's going to be an exciting future.
If you were to pick a route that SeaLink or Calcium serves, I think about Bruny Island, I think about the gas fields you service in Gladstone. Are these the sort of areas that might be able to adopt some of this technology, because it's probably calmer water, shorter distances?
Yeah, you're spot on. You've got to pick a ferry route that matches what the technology's up to at the moment. And certainly the calm waters, the short runs are the ones that are the low-hanging fruit. And that's why I mentioned Brisbane River. But Bruny will be the next one. And whenever we're building new ferries, and we've got 6 under construction at the moment, we're thinking very carefully about, okay, this is a 25-year asset. It's going to have to change its fuel usage at some stage. How do we make that easy to execute in the future? So all of that thought's going in, and again, our board is making sure that this is all thinking that we take into every new build and looking at second life for vessels.
Ali, you have got 2 hotels also in India. You've lived in Finland. You're here in Australia. How do we stack up globally in your view?
2 hotels in India. I think Queensland is doing very good. But being lived in Scandinavia, I was quite disappointed, to be very honest with you. When I went to Finland in 2001-2, and I saw the awareness they had at that time, that was coming from India. I was like, whoa, this is like different things. Well, we have to do it now. And then got opportunity to come to Australia in 2014-15, and I thought that Australia is a great nature-based country. It's amazing, a lot of sun, great beaches, great culture, one of the oldest culture on the planet. It will be way better than Finland, but no. We can try, we are trying very hard, and I think we need to work more harder than this. We need to start from our own doorstep. We have to adopt that into our business, into our commercial activities, how we can do better. And we are I'm not saying that we are not doing it. We are doing a great job, but we can do better than that. We can go more. There are a lot of grant, help, support from the government, but we as a operator, as a leader in the industry, and we have to do it. And I think we need to work a bit more harder, and I'm sure a lot of people are doing it, and go and get the certification, put it out, let people know that what practices you are doing, and go more hard and start it from your own state door.
Ali, you grew up in regional India, you've gone to Finland, you come to Australia in the hinterland. Are you running from the law? What's going on here?
Andrew, I've never been to this school. So my university is this tourism industry. I started working in industry at the age of 8, and I don't know I'm not running with the law or not, but I love tourism industry, and I've been fortunate enough to see the all extreme what you can go and see.
Oh, it's great to have you here. Tara, you want to make a comment?
Yeah, I just wanted to put a local example of, from my area, the Mossman Gorge Centre, which was the dream child of Roy Gibson, a Gugu Yalanji man. They celebrated 10 years this year, and they are an absolute success story in what we're talking about. Through that time, so the Mossman Gorge prior to that had a real issue with vehicle congestion. The local community was being negatively impacted by so many visitors passing by, gawking at the community, and they went through years achieving funding and being able to, close the road to the public. And now we have a centre that has had hundreds of Indigenous students going through studying tourism, hospitality. Most recently, they've had a number of tour guide courses complete. They're now working with a lot of our small businesses. A number of the tourism students are working through the resorts and the bigger operators in the area and Australia-wide. And so this is a tourism example that is here now, and it's absolutely where they're making a major positive contribution through visitation that's benefiting the community, it's benefiting visitors through the cultural connection as well. So I think there is a lot more positive out there. I just believe there's a lot more to do.
Mossman Gorge is a great example, Tara. There's no more road crush traffic. It's not ruining the environment. They're looking to do electric vehicles. It's actually had a commercial return. I'm on the board of Voyages, which runs it, and it's actually now a profitable business when it wasn't previously, because people are booking the tour to do it. So to me, it's one of the best examples, and it's here in Queensland, of a real turnaround story that's good for the economy, good for the business, but also good for the environment.
And the community,
yeah.
Absolutely. Now there's meaningful employment, there are benefits flowing through the arts program, through cuisine and the guides and the storytelling, and visitors leaving with a really meaningful experience. So yeah, it's something I get really excited about because it is absolutely delivering.
And the training centre's training 100 Indigenous people a year that go out into the workforce and populate our country with people that can tell the original story. So I think it's a really terrific example. Look, we've got a few minutes left, and just a last question to all of you. You all run your businesses, and I think the Minister said it earlier today, he's 100% right. The industry will drive towards the economic and social and environmental goals. But as the Minister said, the government is there to support not just state government, but local and federal. Is there anything governments can do, and I'll begin with you, Tara, to help incentivise and encourage this push to a regenerative future?
Absolutely. Yeah. We're certainly seeing some really great schemes coming through, the recent EV ones. It's tough in regional areas to get this moving, and we're so far behind. I think Mossman Gorge might be the last charging station going north. That's a lot of Queensland going north that's missing out. So incentives, absolutely, for private and public sector. Small local governments don't have a lot of money to be able to make this transition, so they are going to require some support. They've got a really low rate base. And absolutely always reward people who are doing the right thing, or provide an incentive to make a decision. If you're looking at a boat, probably for calm water cruising right now, and there's an incentive to make that right choice, that's going to help enormously for the whole state moving forward.
I'll come back to you in a minute, Simon, but Chriss, this is sort of happening with the bus fleet that you've got, isn't it, where governments are incentivising Calcium to actually change from combustion engines into electric. Is there anything else do you think can happen, particularly perhaps in the marine part of the business?
What we saw when we sort of got together in Seattle is what's holding back some of the industry and some of the investment is the uncertainty of which technology is going to emerge. So if we're going...
It's like beta versus VHS, isn't it?
Yeah. That's
and I bought a beta, right?
We're showing your age there. If we want to accelerate the jump here, if we're going to back a horse like hydrogen, we really need to double down on the investment to lead the industry to jump on board and make the leap of faith that it will become commercially viable. The sooner we sort of start jumping off the edge into that opportunity, the faster it will flow, and it'll drive the commercial sustainability at a faster rate. And I think that's what I was seeing overseas, is the governments are starting to double and triple down on their investments to help industry make the jump so it becomes commercially viable faster.
Just a quick example, Hertz went into receivership in the US a couple of years ago, and a private equity firm called Sataris bought it off the back of a federal government incentive program to change the fleet out into electric, which meant that the cars were going to cost them less and they'd be a better proposition. So that's now a business that's back up out of bankruptcy based on some private sector investment, but certainly some encouragement from the government. Simon, what do you think? Is there things that local, state or federal government could do that could encourage you further to continue on the path that you're on?
Yeah, absolutely. But similar to what you were saying, Chriss, I think for us it's the technology. It's something, we really need the availability of those options to move forward. For now, we can only do what we can do without, something like hydrogen power. If that was readily available, we had the standards there, we had a way, we knew how to do it, we knew a cost. It's absolutely something that we would have already done. So I guess that's something to think about in the future. I heard the Minister earlier talking about funding for some of those certifications. I think that's a fantastic way forward as well, and perhaps some incentives on things that different businesses can do individually. What's regenerative tourism for all of those industries. There's so many different options, but incentives for people or ideas even to be able to go down those paths.
One thing I think we should do, and Leanne, you're very good at this stuff, and I'm sure you've done it, but there's some really good case studies, Queensland case studies here, I think, and we should bundle them up, package them up and release them to the rest of the industry, and I think we've got some really good examples up here. But Ali, what do you think? Is there anything else that would help you? You work with a lot of government sectors, national parks, you work with the local councils. What's your thoughts?
There is a lot of supports available, actually.
There is, yeah.
In terms of economical, if we talk about. You just need to go out and look for those right supports. The question comes how we attract more businesses to go on this path. That's, I don't know, maybe you have to come up with some kind of subsidies who are doing or taking these practices in place. Or how we can encourage to more businesses financially who come and take this path, where we all work together and make our destination a great greener and leave the place better than what it is. And people love it. When you say about the tech, when people get to know that this is actually sustainable practice business, it attracts the consumer. And how we, as a business, how we can get more. What government can do, I don't know, subsidize something, bit of the practice business, or maybe rates or something which attract more businesses to come and do this. And if you really think as an operator what government can do, I think government can bring some kind of immigration policy which can bring the labour from the internationally to the Queensland. That's what is the biggest.
You can't use this forum to bring your family out, Ali.
I don't think so that my
That's not
family will come in here because they are quite enough busy.
No, I agree,
but,
yeah.
But that is if you go and there is a immigration policy for the farmers or the fruit pickers.
Yep.
That is a specific visa for that category. Something like this, if you think of. A lot of people have done the degrees out of Australia. They
Yes.
are there struggling finding job in their own countries. They can come to Australia for 9 months, 8 months, or 1 year, I don't know, something like that.
I think you're right.
To
The
support
federal
all
skilled
businesses.
immigration
Correct,
program
yeah.
is a really good thing
Yeah,
that we should be
That's
targeting.
the biggest support what we need.
Absolutely. Look, we've run out of time. I'd just like to ask the audience to thank our panel, Tara, Simon, Chriss and Ali. Thank you very much. Well done, guys. Thank you.